everyone! Welcome! We are happy you're here. This week we, the Dokis, will be reading the beginning of Volume 6, Chapter 1, Bittersweet Memories. Shimamura and her family are going away to visit her grandparents in the countryside. As a parting gift, Adachi sent Shimamura her heart. Ah! Looks like Shimamura isn't the only one going on vacation. Hino is leaving town as well to visit Hawaii. Would Nagafuji survive the weeks of not having her shorty around? Would Yashiro live up to the hype of being Nagafuji meets mascot? Come along and read with us. Don't forget to invite your number one friend along as well. It's time to Ada, Shima, and chill.
Today is Adachi. Should I attach a heart to the end of the message? I wasn't quite sure. I put it on to see what it would look like and... Whoa! It really stood out. Were I to send Shimamura something like this, it would no doubt capture her attention. I'd better delete it right away. Ah! Oh no! I accidentally sent just the heart! Chapter 1. Bittersweet Memories.
You must always face things head-on. If you don't, you won't be able to be true to yourself.
That was something a middle school teacher, whose name I could no longer remember, had told me. While certainly a good piece of advice, I couldn't help but feel like it had come too late. You see, me back then wasn't the same person I'd once been. Instead, it more resembles a perfectly smooth rock, polished by the flow of the river in which it sat. You could say that I never hesitated, nor stumbled, or if you wanted to be mean about it for some reason, that I didn't have any connections to hold me in place. Swiftly, time continued to flow. That was the sort of person I'd ended up growing to be. There was no singular event, no impetus to which my change could be traced down to. I'd simply moved from elementary to middle school and found myself surrounded by people who pushed way past the limits of what human relations ought to be like. Even now, I still viewed what I had done as nothing more than a form of adaptation. Whereas good, virtuous thoughts were something anyone could easily recognize, the negative ones, those had a tendency to sneak into your mind. Given this, it was often difficult for the most innocent of people, that was to say, children, to have any sort of resistance towards them, causing their overall situation to slowly get worse and worse. Furthermore, given that it was they themselves who had caused that to happen in the first place, no one would be kind enough to feel sympathy for them, to offer them a helping hand. I could only imagine what a painful experience that might be. Thankfully, I never had to experience it myself. You see, it was quite early that I came to this conclusion and chose to close up my heart, thus avoiding being hurt. While doing so did make it impossible for negative thoughts to sneak in, it also meant that nothing was able to get out. I could feel myself slowly growing unable to display interest towards what was around me, and yet I didn't mind. I found the lack of mental fatigue that usually came with having to deal with attachment more pleasant than anything. Thus, I became a part of the flow. That was neither a good nor a bad thing in my mind, but rather how the world was, its natural state. When the sun begins shining intensely, you start feeling warm, and as winter approaches, you start feeling cold. Things before me kept on changing. And yet, I didn't. I remained mostly the same as ever. This went to explain why I never really questioned myself, my being, who I was as a person. After all, why would I? I was going to stay like I was for the rest of my life anyway. That was what I thought. There was no reason for me to change. I was good the way I was. I really did think that. Whether I met someone, whether I failed, whether my dreams and hopes grew distant, none of that mattered. As there was no point in chasing after anything, I figured that I might as well cast down my eyes and wait for the pain and regret to fade away, for me to return to my usual self. And that was exactly what I did. Simply stood still and allowed things to pass me by. And yet all of that changed when I met Shimamura. No longer was I allowed to simply ignore what was happening around me. No longer could I stay the way I was. I had to change. All of the stability I'd managed to build up vanished in an instant. I didn't have a place to stay anymore, somewhere I could feel content. Instead, I was left to constantly move forward. The progress wasn't smooth, and rather than being carried by the flow, I had to travel down it one stroke at a time. all because I wanted to get closer to the beauty before me. That had got me where I was now, putting all my thoughts and feelings into one place. I decided to go and ask Shimamura to hang out. Unfortunately, her reaction wasn't quite what I had hoped for.
Huh? Sorry, not possible.
Swiftly, she pushed her hand out in front of her and shook it from side to side. It really did feel like I'd just been punched in the gut. I stared at her, confused, prompting Shimamura to explain herself.
Oh, no. It's because we're going over to my grandparents' house. You know, the Obon festival?
That was a perfectly respectable reason, no doubt about it. Really, if you were to list out all of the possible things she could have said in terms of how valid they were, this one would have been near the top. Easily. I was also able to sigh in relief. It wasn't the case that I had been personally rejected. So, visiting your parents in Obon, huh? While I did know that was a custom, being someone with a very weak connections to their relatives, it wasn't something I'd personally had much experience with.
I see.
I really should have called her first week before coming here. I knew that was the right way to handle these situations, and yet I couldn't do so. I was far too scared of my phone to even touch it. The earlier exchange had sown a seed of hesitation somewhere deep in my core. Plus, I had to admit, there was a side to me which felt a little satisfied being able to see her face. It made me calm.
Yep. Also, we're leaving today, so...
Right. I guess that makes sense, given the timing and all.
With nothing worthwhile to add, I was left to simply nod along. Also, and this is totally unrelated to everything, the shirt Shimamura was wearing was covered in drawings representing eggs. They were all cracked, but instead of egg yolk, what poured out from inside of them were animals of all sorts of different species. Where did they sell shirts like that? Not at Shimamura, I would suppose.
How many nights are you staying?
I decided to go ahead and ask, all the while wiping my palms clean of sweat.
The planned length of the stay is 3 nights and 4 days.
Why did she choose to make her sound like that of a tour guide on a bus? I had no idea. Whatever the case, it did seem fitting. The way she turned her palms outwards, too.
I see. Well then, in 4 days, do you mind if I come by again?
I asked her, my voice trembling. Shimamura nodded her head slightly.
Sure, that's fine.
Having stated that, she then went on to glance at my face. My expression was apparently quite telling, as quickly she added the following.
Don't worry. I'll call you once I get back.
I'll be waiting.
I really did mean that. I would be thinking about it constantly. Heck, if it was up to me, I'd stay in her room and wait for her there, all so that I'd get to see her ever so slightly faster. My mind continued to race with thoughts of that sort. Meanwhile, Shimamura remained as she was, her gaze bouncing between my forehead and neck. It almost looked like she was observing me. Why? Was something wrong? I froze up completely, only for her to turn around and walk back inside. Seriously, what was going on? I didn't have to wait long to find out, as a few moments later she returned, this time holding something in her hands. A bottle of mineral water, and an ice cream, to be precise.
Since you went out of your way to come here... Wait, that's not right. Calling it a consolation prize kinda has a bad ring to it, doesn't it?
Still holding up the 2 items, Shimamura tilted her head to the side.
A reward so that you can come again? No, that's even worse. A reward since it's so hot outside? Now that one doesn't even make any sense.
Just like that, she began dissecting her sentence, scrutinizing what she'd just said in far more detail than was necessary. This was something I'd noticed about her. Though usually very loose and relaxed in her approach to life, she did have a real tendency to get hung up on the weirdest things. I was like that too in a lot of ways.
Well, not like it really matters. Here you go.
Shimamura stated, putting an end to the whole thing. A smile then appeared on her face as she handed me the 2 rewards. Was that a good term? Not sure. Instantly, I could feel a surge of heat hit me around the eyes. This was hardly something which deserved such a dramatic reaction, and yet I simply couldn't help myself. I had no lid to speak of. It was for this exact reason I found myself so drawn in by Shimamura. And not just some part of her, but rather her entire being. The whole situation came as a shock to me. I didn't know what to say. I was stuck, unable to move. Thankfully, as Shimamura apparently didn't find my behavior odd, or at least not odd enough to ask questions, I was left with ample time to fix my expression first before accepting the water and ice cream. They were both just as cold as you might have expected, offering sweet comfort to my palms, once again covered in sweat.
Careful now. The ice cream is going to melt if you clutch it that hard.
Huh? Really? Panicking, I hurried to loosen my grip, nearly dropping the frozen treat in the process. It was honestly a miracle that I managed to save it,
Thanks.
I stated while holding the bottle and ice cream next to my face, prompting Shimamura to lightly shake her head.
No. It's no big deal.
Immediately after she'd said this, her parents walked out from inside the building. Knowing my time had come, I hung my head, gave her a quick
Goodbye.
and turned away. I had barely left the premises of our house when the realization finally came to me. No longer could I as much as perceive the ongoing heatwave. Those sensations had been taken over by the warmth I felt talking with Shimamura. And yet, there was some cold as well. I was mainly referring to her kindness, her consideration of my feelings, which lingered in my hands. I went ahead and held up the plastic bottle. Something about staring through the clear liquid inside, which brought my mind straight back to the second floor of the sports hall. That was where it had all begun. As if every single cell in my body had been replaced, a new me was born. I held no lingering attachments towards my past self. You might as well purge my mind clean of what I was like in the past. None of that mattered to me. Not one bit. All I cared about was the current me, the me of tomorrow getting closer to Shimamura. Removing the bottle's cap, I took a sip of the mineral water. I wasn't doing so to indulge in memories. Rather, my goal was to offer vitality for the new me. Slowly but steadily, the liquid filled my mouth.
Looking after Adachi as she walked away, I found myself wondering. Was celebrating Obon not a custom in her household? She certainly did have the aura of a city person about her. What did I mean by that? Well, to put it simply, it always felt to me like she would be right at home surrounded by bars of reinforced steel. You know, pale, cleanly cold. Living without any contact to the land? Steel bars. Those had a tendency to get pretty hot. And so did she. A pretty big stretch, I'll admit, but in a weird way, it kind of fits.
Get yourself ready. We're leaving in just a bit.
Yeah.
I replied to Mom. I then returned to my room, only to find Yashiro busy eating a stick of ice cream on my bed. Was it one of ours? Or was it something she'd brought with her? Whatever the case, she sure seemed to be enjoying it. I couldn't help but spend the next few moments staring at her. There was something very soothing about the sight, her hair even more dazzling than the ice cream. That calmness was very much temporary, however, as soon as another thought passed through my mind. What did she think she was doing on my bed? I quickly moved to grab the girl by the nape of her neck. Just one of my slender arms was more than capable of lifting her up. Her arms and legs desperately swinging in the air, Yashiro turned her gaze towards me.
What is the matter, Shimamura?
I thought we had a deal. No sweets in bed.
We did? I don't remember anything of the sort.
Oh, maybe it was my sister then? Well, whatever. That goes for you too, starting from today.
I made sure to carry her outside my bed before releasing her. Now free, Yashiro instantly leaned against me, using my legs almost like the back of a chair. This left me unable to move, and As I sat down, she wasted no time to get between my legs. It was quite warm, even inside, and yet, for some reason, having her right next to me didn't make me feel the slightest bit overheated. As I'd recently discovered, that was always the case with her. Why? I wasn't quite sure. If anything, I was left feeling slightly refreshed thanks to her bluish color scheme. With a wide grin on her face, Yashiro took the ice cream she'd just been eating and held it out to me.
Would you like a bite?
Sure.
I decided to accept her offer. I was already anticipating it to be so based on the color of its core, but, taking a bite, I discovered that the ice cream was strawberry flavored.
How sweet.
Isn't it?
For whatever reason, Yashiro sounded really proud of herself as she said that. Also, now that I thought about it, wasn't the one I gave to Adachi also strawberry? Adachi and Shimamura. Strawberry flavor. Wouldn't be all that different from how it is now, I didn't think. Anyway, putting that topic aside, I went ahead and gripped Yashiro's cheeks. Her cheeks were ridiculously soft. Stretching them, I continued staring at the girl. In some sense, she really might have been the one person I got along with the easiest. Hanging out with her felt like it came with no baggage, no strings attached. I could just do it whenever I wanted and things would naturally sort themselves out. For better or worse, our relationship was perfectly casual. Someone had once commented that she resembled me, and I had to wonder, was this where that similarity was found? While the girl did always have a wide, innocent grin on her face and acted quite sociably, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was merely a front. Wait, that probably wasn't the best way to put it. In any case, the impression I got from her was that nothing she did was planned out, as if she was simply coming up with things on whim to see what would happen. Thinking about it some more, that might have been the essence of what having a carefree personality was all about.
Hoo hoo hoo!
What was she trying to say? I couldn't tell. Even so, I had to say her cheeks sure were stretchy. I couldn't feel any bones, no matter how deep I poked my fingers. All that was transmitted to me through her cheeks was the coldness of the ice cream she was enjoying.
Ah, Yachi. When did you get here?
Hello, Shou.
Just then, my sister returned, her face covered in sweat. Why was she sweaty? Oh, likely because she'd just finished carrying her fish tank over to our neighbor's house. You see, the fish would hardly survive going without food for the few days our house was going to be vacant. And because of that, she'd asked the old woman living next door to take care of them while we were gone. She really liked animals, that girl. So much so that she's even taken this weird creature in, I thought to myself while pinching a strand of Yashiro's fluffy hair between my fingertips. The combination of its texture and the light it emitted made it seem like it could easily be used as a material for making ornaments and other crafts.
Would you like a taste?
Yashiro asked, offering the ice cream to my sister as well. Just like me, she too took a bite of it. Enjoying the taste of strawberry, the girl then turned her eyes towards me.
Dad said to tell you that we're leaving right now. Oh, right. Yeah, I'm coming.
I quickly rolled Yashiro off my lap and picked up the bag I'd prepared earlier. Given that we were simply going to be visiting my grandparents, I hadn't really taken all that much stuff with me. Now, if this was a trip to the ocean like that one Hino had gone on, that would be a completely different story. I would likely need a second bag, or maybe even a third. After making sure that the windows were locked up, I headed towards the front door along with my sister. My parents were already waiting for us outside.
Sure took your time.
It was Mom who spoke, almost sounding like a stereotypical street punk for some reason. Why was she acting that way? I wasn't quite sure. Then again, I suppose it wasn't really out of the ordinary as far as she was concerned. Ignoring her, I put my shoes on and stepped outside myself.
Now then, time to go. Well, before that...
There was something which needed to be resolved first. Instantly, all of our eyes turned towards Yashiro, standing there while staring back at us. She didn't seem to find the situation one bit strange, instead choosing to focus on licking her ice cream.
Hey!
I called out to her after a moment of awkward silence. Softly, the girl tottered over to me.
What is it?
Well, it's not really anything, but...
There was something about Yashiro's appearance, the way she stared our family down with round eyes that made it difficult for me to decide what to say. Her blue pupils brought to mind the image of a globe when she opened them like that, a globe which trembled gently.
Are you all living together?
Yes, we are.
It was my sister who spoke, going out of her way to imitate Yashiro's way of speaking. I also took the opportunity to nod my head.
Oh, I see now.
Had she really not noticed before? That was the impression I was left with. I figured she must have figured that something was up since everyone was getting busy getting things ready around her, but I guess not.
Well, in that case, enjoy your journey. I will watch over your house when you're gone.
Apparently, she still didn't understand what was going on. It kinda annoyed me, if I'm being honest. Putting genuine force into it, I grabbed her and tossed her outside the house.
Why?
Because even if you are sometimes treated like it, you're not actually part of our family.
Plus, we'd have to ask the old lady next door to check on her daily, almost like she was a pet. That being said, I couldn't really imagine her doing anything bad. She'd probably just sleep a bunch.
I'll buy you a souvenir. Just be a good girl while we're gone, okay?
I'm always good.
To finish off, my sister gave her head a quick pat. It really did make her look older than she was when she did that. Also, I had to say, it was quite strange how much pride Yashiro appeared to be taking in her comment. A souvenir, huh? Was it really a good idea to promise something like that all willy-nilly? I mean, our grandparents lived in the countryside, and I do mean actual countryside, the kind where you'd be hard-pressed to find a store, the kind that was increasingly rare these days. You barely saw any traffic lights there, or people for that matter, or cars. That left me with a question. What was there then?
Gone.
A friend. A friend who I'd made 10 years ago. Meeting him used to bring me endless joy. And yet, at some point, things had changed. These days, my heart is filled with an equal amount of misery and comfort. As if the bottom of my heart had been covered in 30 rocks, I'd begun experiencing pain as well.
Are they waiting for the souvenir?
Yeah. I'll be sure to bring you something.
With Yashiro seeing us off, I got inside the car. What was even going on here? Honestly, I really wasn't quite sure. I'd barely sat down when my phone rang with a text from Adachi. What might she have to say? I quickly opened the message, although let's just say its contents didn't exactly answer my question.
What the heck is this?
It was a heart. That's all. No other text. Did she perhaps mean to send something else? That might be a possibility, although it was hard for me to imagine what that something else might be that got converted into a heart by accident. A heart as red as a strawberry. Was she perhaps wishing me a safe journey? No, that didn't seem right either.
Well, whatever.
There was no need to think about it so hard. Instead, I decided to simply accept the message at its face value. I went ahead and sent her a heart back. With that done, it was time to lean back in my seat and let the car carry me away. Like a giant eyelid, the summer sun shining in through the window covered me in its glare.
Bonus chapter: Nagafuji the Rogue Visitor. Wanting to shock Hino since it'd been a while since I last did so, I decided to visit her house without booking an appointment first. Wait, shock her? Startle her? Those pretty much meant the same thing, right? Yeah, let's go with that. What really mattered was being able to make her jump a little. I could feel the mood in the air change completely as I entered the bamboo thicket leading to her house. The majority of the sunlight was absorbed by the leaves, causing the wind which blew through them to be not scorching hot, but instead nice and cool. The way it softly touched my skin was pleasant to say the least. It almost felt like I was swimming in the air as I walked along the stone-paved pathway. Sadly, that was only temporary, and I soon reached the end of the bamboo thicket. What now spread before me was the giant yard, so large and green I would not be surprised to find turtles or maybe even cranes roaming around, as well as the mansion itself. Or really, a palace. Even from a distance, I could smell that its walls were built of high-quality wood. Whereas I saw the building as being absolutely massive, Hino apparently didn't. I could only assume that her being so tiny was the reason why. My eyes came across an intercom installed by the front door, and wasting no time, I went ahead and pushed it.
Yes.
The voice which greeted me belonged to Hino's other brother Kotaro. Was it? Something like that.
Hello!
Oh. You're Akira's friend from school. Your name is... What was it again?
It appeared that he remembered me as well.
I am the meat girl.
That wasn't actually my name. Regardless, I felt like it was too late to try and correct it now.
Just a second.
I could hear his voice grow slightly distant as he turned his head towards the hallway.
Akira, a friend of yours is at the door.
Say what now?
This voice belonged to Hino. The impression I got from it was that she wasn't exactly in a good mood.
A friend. Friend.
That's me!
I decided to shout out, as if jumping in the mix. Why? No idea.
And who might this friend be?
Me! Of course.
What did you come here for?
To hang out.
No sooner had the words left my mouth than Hino rushed through out the door. Unfortunately, she wasn't wearing Japanese clothes today. What a bummer. She looked great in a yukata.
Damn it with you. Don't tell me that you forgot.
Her eyes filled with a mix of both shock and amazement. Hino continued staring at me, all the while scratching her cheek. Of course, I hadn't forgotten. I never forgot anything.
Nope. I made sure no one was following me.
Really now? Ah, well, good job.
Ha 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 ha!
It really did make me happy being praised by Hino. If I had to guess, I said that no one else out there could make me feel the same way.
That wasn't a compliment, you know.
Wait. What?
As we were talking, I could see Hino's mother running through the hallway behind her. The woman wore a kimono at all times, even during family visits at school, making her very easy to recognize. I also got the impression that Hino found that slightly embarrassing.
Sure seems busy around here.
Two large carving cases had been placed near the show rack. Wait, scratch that. The maid just brought a third one. I shift my attention from them to Hino, prompting the girl to state the following.
That be because we're leaving on a trip for Hawaii today.
You are? Really?
Hawaii, huh? Considering how tense she was already, there was a real possibility that she might come back fully roasted.
Yes! I told you about this a week ago.
Don't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, I figured you wouldn't.
Come on now, even she forgot stuff from time to time, mostly things that were inconvenient to her.
How many days are you staying there?
6. We also talk about that.
Don't remember. Sorry.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyway, there you have it. I can't hang out with you.
It was way too hot here to think about anything. With that in mind, I decided to step in for a second. There, in the entrance, I sat down.
Every single year, you and your family travel overseas, huh?
I guess so.
That was a custom I followed ever since I got to know her in grade school. Those were the days. She'd done it last year as well, and even then I'd wonder, how did she spend her time away? What sort of stuff did she do? As I Hino turned around to look at me. I met her with a smile before making the following suggestion.
Oh, how about I take care of the house while you're gone?
What? No! Shoo! Leave!
And just like that, I was chased away. I get it. She was busy and all, but seriously, there was no reason to act rude. At the same time, I did feel a bit embarrassed having bothered her when she really didn't have time for it. Accepting my defeat, I decided to do as told and walk away. I found myself instinctively imitating a cicada as I traveled down the stone path. I wonder, were there cicadas living in these bamboo trees as well? I turned my gaze upwards and just then,
Hey, Nagafuji.
Hino called out to me, not running in my direction. The way the shadows cast by the trees went with her tan skin really reinforced the idea of it currently being summer.
Here.
She said before tossing a plastic bottle filled with green tea towards me. I got it, and instantly, the cool temperature of the liquid inside was transmitted into my fingertips.
I'll call you once I get back. So, yeah, come over right away. Wait, no, scratch that. I'll come over.
The last bit was said while she already had her back turned towards me, so whose house was it in the end? Well, as long as Hino was there, I didn't really care.
Sure thing. Leave it to Nagafuji.
Why do you sound so proud saying that?
You could hear her laughing between her long breaths.
I'll look forward to my souvenir.
Yeah, yeah. I'll make sure to buy you candy or something.
With that, Hina once again began running towards her house. For good this time. I saw her off the whole distance, and there in the doorway, she turned around and waved me goodbye one last time. I too waved back as well. The only difference was that my hand formed a much greater arc. This apparently wasn't to Hino's liking, as immediately after she saw me do so, her lips puckered up. She then waved at me again, going at it in a much more grandiose manner this time.
I responded by going even bigger, but sadly, she completely ignored me. Hmm. Anyway, I then ran off. There was a problem, however, a big problem.
Oh, this isn't good.
I was just making my way through the bamboo grove when I realized that I had nowhere to go. Should I just be a good girl and head back home? But what then? What would I do there? As much as I enjoyed laying on the floor in front of the fan, could I really do that for 6 days straight? My head might honestly explode.
Oh?
Just then, my eyes came across a certain blue individual, her head bouncing from side to side as she made her way forward on the opposite side of the street. I immediately recognized her to be the girl who occasionally visited our store. The way she walked was quite strange, and in a lot of ways resembled the way I did. Having noticed me back, the girl's eyes were now fixed on me.
Chee.
What?
What?
Oh!
I broke into a sprint, and so did she. Then, a few seconds later, our bodies slammed against one another. Unlike what you might have expected based on her height, the girl did not fall on her backside, but instead took the impact without as much as batting an eyelash. It appeared that she was in quite good shape, at least as far as the lower half of her body was concerned.
You are the person who runs the cricket store!
Yeah, something like that.
Now that Shou and Shimamura have left, I no longer have a place to go!
Funny. I'm pretty bored with Hino going on a vacation with her family.
Two people who shared a fate. She could understand me, and I could understand her. With no words, we embraced each other. After a few moments spent crying, we eventually let go. Damn, it sure was getting hot in here. And I don't mean to say that the girl particularly was warm. Rather, I was starting to grow sweaty from all the running around I've done.
So, you have nothing to do, huh?
No?
As for the girl, now grinning as brightly as a person possibly could, no droplets of sweat could be seen anywhere on her body. No, her hair was perfectly dry, perfectly soft. Her hair was so mysteriously blue it appeared both artificial as far as beyond what humans were capable to construct all at the same time.
Well, in that case, Why don't you come over to our place?
All right, I shall accept your invitation.
She didn't give the proposal much thought and instead agreed to it right away. It went without saying, but myself, I'd obviously spent a long time thinking about it first. Obviously, the plan I had in mind was to bring her over and make her run the store in my place. Given the similarities between her appearance, that of our store's mascot, I'd go as far as to say that she was all but made for the role.
Want a drink?
I asked her while popping the bottle open. Immediately she took it off my hands, almost as if she'd been dying of thirst. You could practically see the liquid pass through her pale white throat as she gulped it down. Anyway, that was what happened on my way back home.
Hey, I found a good shop assistant today.
Those were the words I said to my mother standing at the storefront as I introduced the blue-haired girl to her.
Ah, it isn't the errand girl.
The woman greeted her. Made sense. She was a regular customer here.
Good.
Yes, yes. How polite. She could definitely be made to interact with the customers.
Listen up, blue girl. All you need to do is say stuff like, it's cheap and it's good, and clap your hands a bunch.
Okay.
It's super simple.
And yet, you somehow managed to mess it up.
Dad commented from the back of the store. I decided to pretend like I didn't hear him. Instead, I gave the girl back a slight push.
Go get 'em.
Standing by the display case filled with meat, I watched as she slammed her petite hands together.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah, that's the way. I like your enthusiasm.
It's cheap. It's cheap.
She just kept on clapping. Just above her head hung a picture of our mascot character Hino had drawn. The more I stared at her, the more closely I felt the two resembled one another. Also, now that I thought about it, the picture really didn't have anything to do with meat, didn't it?
Weren't you saying that you'd be staying over at a friend's place?
Mom asked. I gave the bag I was carrying a quick shake before answering.
Turns out, Hino's going to Hawaii with her family.
What a disappointment. Seriously, not having her around left my summer break feeling partial. Was that right usage of the word? Who knows? Being a child of the modern era, I never really went out of my way to look that kind of stuff up. Still clapping her hands, the girl shifted her attention up toward me, her supervisor of sorts.
You and Hino are really close, Nagafuji.
I guess so.
I mumbled in response, drawing closer to the display case. When had I told her my name? Or Hino, for that matter?
Myself, I'm close with Shou and Shimamura.
The girl looked extremely proud of herself as she said that. Even here away from the sun, her hair continued to glow. It appeared that only reason she'd brought the topic up in the first place was to boast. While I wasn't sure who this show person was meant to be, I did know Shimamura. So she was friends with her? How curious. The impression I always got from Shimamura was that, despite appearing quite sociable, once you pulled back that layer, you realized that she was actually quite indifferent to other people. I mean, sure, she tolerated me and Hino, but I would never go as far as to say that she loved or even liked us.
Just so you know, I'm Hino's best friend.
I felt like I could just make that part clear. On second thought, saying it like that kinda make it sound like being Hino's best friend was the single most noteworthy thing about me. My strong point, if you would. In that case, maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing if I wound up working as a maid over at her house in the future. Would she be willing to hire me just because she knew me? Maybe not. I kinda got the feeling that she'd be more opposed to it, not less. There were times when I didn't quite understand what went on in Hino's head, and this was most definitely one of them. Anyway, the girl ended up working for us till sunset. Her bright blue hair was extremely effective when it came to attracting customers. It happened more than once that a group of old ladies would walk by, stop in their tracks as they saw her, and then come visit the store. See, I told you I had an eye for these things. Beyond that, I also made sure to teach her the proper way to greet friends. It eventually came to close the shop and have dinner. The girl joined us as well, and after taking a quick bath, she went on her merry way. Where was she heading? I didn't know. I wasn't even sure where she lived. The one thing I did know was that for some time following her leave, particles similar in color to her hair could be seen floating around the store.
Bonus chapter Hino the Return.
Oh! Hino!
Ah, I see. I see. You love me. Huh, got it. Now, let's go.
I really wish she wouldn't cling on to me while I was changing clothes. Not only did it make doing so quite difficult, some pieces of clothing that I didn't intend to remove got dangerously close to falling off as well. Not in my wildest dreams had I expected her to have been waiting to ambush me in my own room as I returned home.
Call me Nagafuji the faithful dog.
Yeah! Stop pinching my butt, you dog!
I talked to the maid and she let me in.
People all remember each other's faces, huh? Meanwhile, Nagafuji continued rubbing hers against my backside. What a moron! Seriously.
See? You're the only one with a terrible memory.
Oh!
Shut up! Already!
Ordering her to at least let me finish putting my clothes on first, I kicked Nagafuji off me. She put up surprisingly little resistance as she fell to the floor. Had she perhaps grown accustomed to clinging onto me? Likely so. I watched as she rolled across the room in a terribly clumsy manner. She then returned, her movements not in the slightest bit more refined. What part of her body was that it kept getting stuck? Don't even ask. Good grief! And here I'd been with my own plans of going over to her place.
Did you have fun in Hawaii?
Hmm, I guess. It wasn't that much different from the usual.
I seen a few locals take care of a small shark that had swum to shore and yelled something to the effect of,
My dinner!
as they drag it off, but other than that, it'd been very peaceful. I hadn't really done any sightseeing to speak of, unless you wanted to count the numerous trips to the hotel's private beach and pool that was. We had merely traveled there to escape the summer's heat, simple as that. Every now and then, a series of fast-paced footsteps could be heard from the direction of the hallway. Without fail, these footsteps were always accompanied by a figure resembling one of my older brothers being cast on the sliding door that faced southwards. They had so awfully visible during the trip that when we got back home, just refused to come down. I suppose you could say was the price you paid for having a large family. Whatever the case, being forced to put up with them was massive pain. It was for this reason exactly that I wanted to take refuge at Nagafuji's place, but sadly, the girl had not taken this fact into consideration when making her decision to instead come here herself.
Say, did you really want to see me that bad?
Yep.
I should have learned this a long time ago, but these sorts of jokes went way over Nagafuji's head. Saying anything here would be super embarrassing. As such, I felt completely silent. Facing the sliding door and the sound of cicadas that could be heard coming from the other side of it, I put on my shirt. There hadn't been any cicadas over in Hawaii, and hearing them now, it truly let me know that I was back home. It was almost as if I had been under a completely different sky. Whenever I went on vacation with my family, I always found it easier to get a clear picture of what had just happened after we returned home compared to when we were actually there. I wasn't quite sure why. I just felt that way. Was it perhaps the case that I was only able to view the situation in its entirety once I first distanced myself from it? Possibly. Despite Nagafuji's efforts to stop me, I was at last able to change my clothes. And yet, the girl looked disappointed.
That's not a kimono.
Of course it isn't. Whew. Ooh. No way am I wearing a kimono when when it's this hot outside.
Those were put on hold till cooler days came. I didn't really see what the problem was. Even after the season changed, we'd still be here, both of us.
Oh, right.
All of a sudden, Nagafuji sprang up and raised her hand.
What?
I was thinking about getting a job at your house.
Huh?
Most of the time, I was able to tell what she meant with her strange remarks, but here, I had not the slightest clue. A job? At our house?
And what exactly do you mean by that?
What do I mean? That I'm gonna get a job here.
Her reply did not answer any of my questions. If anything, I was left even more confused. The business our family conducted was hardly the sort you could get involved with just like that. Plus, as far as her personality was concerned, Nagafuji was clearly not cut out for it, not in the slightest. So then, what else could she mean? Was she planning on marrying Goshiro? No way. That was obviously out of the question. Or was it? I found the whole situation kinda annoying. It really pissed me off. Just get it out already. I wanted to yell at her. Perhaps able to sense my intense fear, Nagafuji went ahead and added the following explanation.
If I became your maid, I'd be able to spend every day with you.
What? Oh, that's what you mean? No. N-O. No. No.
Waving my hand from side to side, I flat her.
Why?
Because you won't be able to do anything.
In
addition, although my parents could be tolerant toward our guests, as far as those who work for them, not so much. There was also the fact that my brothers would be bossing her around. Something about that didn't sit right with me. Nagafuji ought to be herself.
I don't think so. Every house needs their own Nagafuji.
She followed this statement by pointing at herself. My heart leapt, and not in a fun way.
It's just, I feel like I'm gonna get bored without you, Hino. Bored and lonely. All my time will be wasted.
With each point she made, Nagafuji bent a finger. She was left with all of them down by the end of it, which was quite strange considering that by my math, she'd only listed out 3 reasons.
See? None of it is good. None.
What about... Oh...
The light coming in through the sliding door painted her fingers. Rather, the one finger she was now holding up in its shine. The shadow of it cast, spreading across the floor like a clock's hand. This hand was frozen, stuck indicating a single moment of time.
Something about it quite resembled the sceneries of summer. While we'd been off visiting Hawaii, I felt time move extremely slowly. Whenever the cool wind blew over me, both myself and the world would take but a single step forward. Conversely, back in Japan, summers appeared almost corrupted, as if time itself had been shut inside a cage of sunlight. And yet, there was something about casting myself into said corruption that I occasionally found quite pleasant.
Anyway. Oh! Hino!
As if she had suddenly remembered something, Nagafuji wrapped her arms around me. She squeezed me tight, all the while rubbing her jaw against the top of my head. It wasn't that different from how you would show fondness to a pet dog. Seriously, she was so there, embraced by her. The rest of that sentence refused to come out.
You feel kinda warm. Is this the sunlight of Hawaii?
Yeah. Yep. You got it.
I replied, feigning negligence. There was something about the paleness of her wrist which held my head that I found to be strangely charming. This was a sensation that couldn't be found in Hawaii, but instead only existed within Nagafuji's arms. Yeah, that's how it was.